everybody, and welcome back to Tea and Lit. Very excited for today's video. It is going to be our review for William Shakespeare's Othello. So grab yourselves a cuppa and a copy and let's get into it. Alright guys, I hope you've been with us throughout this entire series going through William Shakespeare's Othello. I'm very excited that we've come to the end and to share more about it. As I've said before, it is a favorite of mine. So today we're going to be doing our review of it, and I wanted to give you a little bit of a breakdown about how I review books. First off, we'll be talking about the rating system. So there are 10 qualities that I look for in a book. The first one is the quality of the writing. Obviously, it's William Shakespeare, so the quality of writing is a 5. Everything is ranked 1 to 5. I don't think I mentioned that. The quality of the writing is a 5. Shakespeare is so poetic, and although it does take some time to get into the groove of him, once you're there with Shakespeare, word for word, line by line, it's an immersion experience, and I really love that in any book, in any story. I really want to be immersed in it. Mom is being so loud. Can you hear her? The second thing that I look at is ease of reading. I gave this a 2 because, again, it's William Shakespeare. This is not how we communicate anymore. And if you guys have seen the other videos, or if you have downloaded the notes, then you will know that there is a lot of vocabulary that I had to look up to get through Othello. I'm sure that's the case for some of you guys. Also, Shakespeare had a very expansive vocabulary, so expansive that he invented some words himself. So in terms of ease of reading, I gave it a 2. The next is the pace of the story, and I definitely feel like this story had a good pace. There was plenty to move forward and go on. There was no point that I was bored reading this story, so I gave it a 4. I do often find plays are tough to pace, just generally speaking, whether I'm reading it or if I'm at the theater itself. Next up is plot development. I really love the plot of... Use your words, darling. I really love the plot of Othello. I really love the plot of Othello. I don't know what more to say about that. It's just, the storyline is great. I gave it a 4 because sometimes I like to see secondary storylines, and I didn't feel that there were too many secondary storylines in Othello, but part of that is the nature of the content. Again, it's a play, not a book, like not a novel, and so that's kind of the case there. Next up is characters. I obviously gave that a 5 because these characters are amazing. And I think I've mentioned this before, but Iago is definitely one of my favorite characters in literature just because he is such an agent of chaos, and I definitely appreciate a psychopath. Next up is atmosphere. Again, this is harder with plays to do than with a novel because the atmosphere is not the priority, because the atmosphere would be the stage. It's hard to get that with reading something because basically all you know is we're in Cyprus, we're in Venice, we're in a bar. Like, it's not super interesting in that way. The most interesting thing was in Act 5 when they're in their wedding chamber. Is that what we want to call it? That's not what they call it. Their bedroom. I'm calling it a wedding chamber because I'm a weirdo. Next up is the enjoyability. Enjoyability got a 5 because I loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Oh, I want to go back and say something about atmosphere. In a play, the costume design and the set designers are integral parts of the experience. And you can really come out of a great play if that isn't on point 100%. Now, with Shakespeare, it's not always necessary because everything else is firing on all cylinders, but there are definitely times where, like, you really need great costuming and really beautiful set design. Those are really important aspects of a play. So I don't want to downgrade it, generally speaking. If I'm at the theater, that's really important to me to have great costumes and great sets, but reading it, less of a priority. Do you want to say that? For any of you who are designers, please don't think me not interested in the topic. I mentioned enjoyability. Next is insightfulness. Is there a storyline here that I think is important for us to know? Yes. I think there are several things that are important to know. Number one, how do I want to say that? Obviously, the racial issues between Desdemona and Othello and the insecurities he carries are very important for us to think about. Also, the relationship between a man and a wife, a man and a woman, and the relationships that they carry around them, I think is really important. So those are two really important things that I think that we can take away from Othello, lessons to be learned from Othello. So I do feel that the story is very insightful. Next is the story's logic, and I'm going to go 4 for that one, mostly because of Iago. Throughout the story, it seems like, at first, it's like, oh, maybe he's in love with Desdemona. Oh, he hates Othello because Othello has a job he wish he had. Oh, maybe he doesn't like Othello because Othello is black. And it's not until the end where you're like, oh, Iago just hates everything. Iago's just a crazy person and just wants destruction for the sake of destruction. So I gave logic a 4, and that's primarily because of the motivation of Iago. It was kind of hard to nail down. And then the last one is book cover. Now, the Folger Shakespeare Library, I imagine, does not make cover design a very high priority, which is fine. I gave it a 2. And the reason I gave it a 2 is because there's not much going on here, so it's not going to be high. But the reason I didn't give it a 1 is because when my Shakespeare books are all lined up on my bookshelf, it looks beautiful. They're all different colors, and it's quite lovely. And I can just go and grab Othello, and it's lovely. So I gave it a 2. All in all, it's roughly 4 hearts. 4 hearts, or 4 stars, however you want to put it. That is my rating for William Shakespeare's Othello, and that is how I do my rating systems. Next up, favorite quote in the story. Obviously, there is so much to quote from William Shakespeare, all of his plays, including, but not limited to, Othello. Othello has so many wonderful quotes, and you will know that if you have been with us throughout this process or if you have seen the notes. However, my favorite quote of this book is like this offhand comment that the Duke makes in Act 1 that, like, I was looking through my notes and I was like, that's the one. That one's my favorite. Why is it my favorite? I don't even know. But it's something that is just sitting on my soul, and I just want to knit it into my heart and think about it all the time because, I don't know, I feel like there's some way to bring this out in the future. Future Lexi is going to want to know this information. The quote is from Act 1, Scene 3, line 238. The Duke says, "The robbed that smiles steals something from the thief." The robbed that smiles steals something from the thief. And I don't know, it just says to me, like, life sucks, but smile through it. Because other people are going to try and hurt you, because people are dreadful. And it's all about your internal attitude. That's kind of what it says to me. I love that line, and it's something that I'm going to be carrying with me throughout. Okay, let's keep going. I'm so chatty. So, let's talk review. As you guys know, I'm in love with this story. I'm in love with this book. I'm in love with these characters. My handwriting is a mess. Let's see. I've got quotes in here that I wanted to mention. I think that when it comes to interracial relationships, there can be a lot of challenges, particularly for the person who is the minority, because that person is going to be worried about what other people are thinking about their relationship. They're going to be thinking about what their partner thinks of them, and some of the things that make the races different, they're going to focus on those things and not focus on the things that make them the same. And we see this in Othello. Even though some of the people around them are supportive, and even though some of the people around them come to their defense, there is an insecurity within him that he just can't really shake. So in Act 1, this was also from the Duke, I think, he says, "If virtue no delighted beauty lack, your son-in-law is far more fair than black," saying that it's way more important that Othello has a beautiful heart, because when Desdemona and Othello are presenting their case in Act 1 about their marriage, most of what they were saying was that Desdemona fell in love with him because of his war stories and the challenges that he'd had in the past, and how his heart was still so soft and tender towards her, even though he'd been through all of these difficult things. And that is why people fall in love, is because of the stories that people share about themselves. And it's not about the color of his skin or where he comes from, it's more about who he is as a man that Desdemona falls in love with. So the Duke comes to his defense when Desdemona's father is saying, oh, she should be afraid of you, you're just not worthy of her, all these things. But later in the story, we're going to see Othello say, "Happily, for I am black, and have not those soft parts of conversation that chamberers have, or for I am declined into the vote Can't read my handwriting. The value of years. I think that's what it says. Could probably go to the act page. Whatever. You'll just have to take my word for it, okay? And so what I think he's saying in there is that, like, he's still feeling insecure about his position. That Desdemona is this aristocratic woman who is from Venice and is white, and here he is. He's a general. He's worked really hard to get where he's at. He's had to overcome a lot of challenges, but he's just not on the same level as these other people that would have been more worthy of her, and that's why she has gone off with somebody who, well, he thinks she's gone off with somebody who is more to her standard. And that's a really heartbreaking thing, and I think it's important for people who are in interracial relationships to recognize that those insecurities can exist within ourselves, and how to overcome them. The other lesson that I am taking away from Othello that I mentioned earlier is the relationship between a man and a wife, and the relationships they carry around them. I do think it is absolutely essential that men and women who are married, they are each other's best friends, and that they tell each other things, and they don't let other people's influence corrupt their marriage. Because that's exactly what happens here. If Iago had said, hey, I think your girl is cheating, and Othello went to Desdemona very simply before he let his mind wander and go crazy and be like, hey, something weird's going on, then she would have said, well, I'm not going to be so defensive of Cassio, and don't worry, there's nothing you need to think about at all. But because Othello lets Iago in, because he thinks Iago is his friend, honest Iago, he's going to tell him the truth about things, he questions his wife. And you should not have to question your spouse before you question your friends, because this is the person you share a bed with. You should trust them. Oh, I spilled. You should trust them above all things. So, that's a really important lesson that I think for men and women, and also in the same vein for the spouse to know when something's wrong and how to navigate that and to confront the issue. Don't beat around the bush. Don't be subtle. Don't try and, find ways to manipulate the situation. Just say straight up, what's going on? Let's work through this. I think, from someone who is unmarried, I think that is the way to successfully have a marriage. And that is not what Othello and Desdemona did. And I think that is what contributed majorly to the failure of their marriage. Okay? So that's my review of William Shakespeare's Othello. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this process. Again, the notes are down below in the description box. Oh, I forgot to say all those things. Please comment. I actually do want to know, what did you think of Othello? I do really want to know. Please write to me a full novel on your opinions on William Shakespeare's Othello, because I would love to read that. Subscribe to the channel. Ding the bell. Vote on the video. I don't want to say like the video, because if you don't like the video, then please give it a thumbs down so that I can know that you don't like these sorts of videos, and then I'll be less likely to make them in the future. Right? That's what we want to do. We're creating content for you guys to enjoy, not just because I like talking to a camera. I do like drinking tea. What else? We will be doing, my brother and I are going to be doing a full literary analysis on this story, so again, do subscribe so you can check that out. And I'll catch you guys next time. Oh, I should mention the t-shirts. We've got some Shakespeare t-shirts also in the description box below. Okay.